This is Hands Like Hide, a podcast for men who know the weight of a long day, the ache of sore hands, and the pull for something more. Through raw stories, biblical truth, and practical wisdom, we explore recovery, growth, and how to become the man you were intended to be. Because every job teaches, and every story has the power to transform you and everyone you lead. Let's get to work.
Hey, what's up, man? How are you doing today? Thank you for joining me on another episode of Hands Like Hide. I'm your host, Charlie Pfeiffer, where every job teaches and every story transforms. Let's do a quick check-in here, and we'll just kind of give you an update on how the last couple of weeks have been on my end of things. Man, I had a ridiculously difficult week. We had a tractor-trailer come in with a blown front rear differential. And if you've ever done any kind of work on big trucks, you understand, like, the front differential sometimes has a locker or a power divider part of it, and it's significantly heavier than the rear differential. And so we got that fixed up, and we also knew the truck needed a clutch. And so we start out the week changing this differential. It's probably like Wednesday when we started on it. So Wednesday, we're ripping this front differential out. And we get the new one put back in by, say, like Friday. And then the following Monday, we were going to rip the transmission out of this truck because we had to do a clutch job. So come Monday, we're ripping this transmission out, pulling the clutch out, all that kind of stuff. Tuesday, put the rear main seal in. And where I work, we don't have a truck lift, and we don't have a pit or any kind of piers, so everything's on your back. Man, I was on a creeper for days and days and days. And I just remember getting home from work, my abs are sore, my back's sore, and I was just like cracking jokes with my wife that I did 500 sit-ups this week because that's what it definitely felt like. Yeah, man, so we get the clutch in, we get the transmission put back in, and by, like, say, Wednesday, the truck was done, so it was in the shop for about a week, and it's on its way to Syracuse, New York, running a load. Well, I get a call from the driver. He's like, "Hey, man, I've got gear oil spraying all over the back of the truck and all over the front of the trailer. Like, there's an issue with the rear differentials." And he's like, "I'm not 100% sure yet what's wrong with it, but, like, there's definitely an issue. It's spraying gear oil everywhere." And my confidence level, I'm in the middle of working on something else at that point. And dude, for a minute, I had to, like, write some notes in my journal. I had to kind of get my head screwed on straight because all I could think of was like, great, what did I screw up or what went wrong? It was like I defaulted to, this is my fault, right? And I just had to kind of get my head screwed on straight with, like, I don't actually know. He doesn't actually know what's wrong with it yet. Stay present, stay focused on what you're doing right now. And, we'll deal with that issue in a day or two when he gets back from Syracuse, and we can just kind of focus on it, address it. So yeah, dude, the truck gets back from that trip, and I check it out, and wouldn't you know it, the rear differential, the pinion shaft bearings went out in the rear differential. And it just grenaded the seal and just tore up the housing in there. It was a mess. And I'm just like shaking my head going, dude, this is ridiculous. We had a truck that got a clutch, and then both differentials on the drive axles, both of them went bad essentially at the same time. My heart was aching for my employer because, dude, that's a huge chunk of change in 1 week. You know what I mean? To get a truck fixed back up and on the road. So needless to behold, after doing 500 sit-ups, quote unquote, doing the other work to this truck, I had to get back on the creeper, roll back under it, and rip the rear differential out. And it was a tough week. And then, but it's going well. I'm thankful I got some really good help at work, and we've got the tooling to do what we need to do. So, yeah, that was just kind of like a significant struggle, especially in that time where I kind of defaulted to, this is my fault. I did something wrong. And come to find out, it's like, no, I didn't do anything wrong. No, it wasn't my fault, not one bit. It just, stuff happened. So if you found yourself in a similar situation where, like, stuff happens and you have a tendency to take responsibility or blame yourself for things that aren't your fault, then I feel you. That's a tough place to be because, sometimes we, for myself, when I feel like this is my fault, this is my problem, that tends to feel normal, right? Blaming yourself for bad things is a coping mechanism that you can get a hold of as a young kid growing up. And you may even have situations with parents. I'm thinking of examples where something bad happens in a family situation and a parent actually tells the child, this is your fault. This is happening because it's your fault. Or a kid grows up with this belief that's like, if I was only a better worker, if I wasn't so needy, if I wasn't so fat, if I was only smarter, if I only did better in school, if I only, right? Then my dad would have liked me, or my mom wouldn't have abused me, or my parents wouldn't have divorced. My parents divorced when I was 14, the year 2000. And there was a time frame where I kind of struggled with that too. Like I went through thinking like, if I only was not me or different, then maybe dad wouldn't have been so angry and mom wouldn't have left then, or something like that, So I get you to it. But kind of what I want to talk about today is the idea of consistency in changing seasons. And this is something I've been kind of thinking about for a couple of days, because to rebuild trust or to be trustworthy requires consistency. It's really hard to trust somebody who isn't consistent. They're all over the place. And what kind of spurred this thought in my mind was last week. I've been drinking a lot of mushroom coffee here recently, and it's really expensive. It's like $40 for 30 servings. And I would go through it in 2-3 weeks. So I really enjoy hot drinks. I enjoy coffee. I enjoy mushroom coffee. I like hot chocolate, anything like that, man. I'm all over it. One of my favorite drinks is actually an Americano from Starbucks, man. That's a cup of coffee. But I was going through too much mushroom coffee. It is expensive. So we're trying to kind of slim down on some of our spending and check on our budget and stuff like that. And so I switched to some regular coffee, some half-calf stuff, whatever. A little bit more affordable. But with the mushroom coffee, we have one of those Ninja Keurigs that also you can brew a pot of coffee at the same time. Well, with the mushroom coffee, I would brew 1 cup at a time, and I'd have probably 3-4 cups throughout the day. Well, when we started getting the regular coffee stuff, I would just brew a pot at a time. And what happened was my wife got concerned because for a long time I was, consistently just brewing 1 cup at a time. The settings on the coffee maker were 12 ounces, and it was like that for a long time. And then all of a sudden, the settings were 41 ounces, right? Because I was brewing a whole pot, and it seemed like we were going through creamer faster than we were before. And so we had this conversation around it, and she said to me, she goes, I just can't keep up. She goes, it's been this way for a long time, and now all of a sudden you're brewing 40 some ounces, and she's like, and I just can't keep up. And so I got to thinking about what she said. I just can't keep up with you. I just can't keep up. I thought, okay, so consistency during changing seasons, because, looking at our finances, cutting costs where we're not really, overspending on mushroom coffee, things like that. That is a very small, but that's a changing season. We're reviewing some things. We're making some changes to our life. And there's a famous quote that if nothing changes, then nothing changes, right? So I just can't keep up with you. I don't know where you're at. I just can't keep up with you. Well, I thought, heck, this is going to really hurt trust, because in a state of rebuilding our relationship as a result of my addictive behaviors, trust trust rebuilding is the most important thing. And so being consistent is the most important thing. So what do you do when you're in a changing season? What have I done during a changing season? Early on in recovery for me, there was a season where I took cold showers every day. Every day I would wake up in the morning and I would jump in the cold shower, straight out, cold water. Winter, didn't matter. It was cold as heck outside and I would jump into cold water. There were times during that season where I would also take occasional ice baths. And the reason for that was early on in recovery, in my addiction recovery, trying to exercise my brain to have self-control over impulses was really important for me. And so I did some research and I did some understanding. And for me, voluntarily choosing to put myself in a very uncomfortable situation, example, cold water ice baths, forced me to be in a situation to focus on my breathing, to focus on staying present, and actually quote unquote, strengthened my muscle of self-control. And I did that for about a year, maybe a little more than a year. Well, then during the changing season, recovery's continuing, healing's growth is continuing, and I didn't find the need to do that anymore as consistently anymore. My focus shifted. And so I was talking about this with my wife after we had this conversation. I'm like, so consistency in changing seasons maybe isn't so much on continuing to do the same behavior or action consistently all the time. Meaning, for the rest of my life, I need to drink mushroom coffee 1 cup at a time. That's consistent, right? Like, okay, things are going to change and that's not going to be relevant. Or for the rest of my life, taking ice baths in the morning every day is consistent. Well, things are going to change, right? So how do you remain consistent during changing seasons? And here's what I have for you. I believe that we need to look past behaviors and actions, and we need to look at consistency of character, consistency of mindset, consistency in principles. And so what I mean by that is, let's take honesty. Okay, honesty is a character trait. It's a fruit of the Spirit. Honesty, truthfulness. Consistency in changing seasons means remaining honest and truthful during changing seasons. Let's look at vulnerability. All right, openness. There's a vulnerability or a transparency can go like 2 different ways. There's like actively transparent and then there's passively transparent. So actively transparent means I will tell on myself, right? I'm going to tell on myself. I did something, I didn't do something, and I am going to actively and proactively tell you what I did or didn't do. I'm not going to wait until you ask me. That's passive transparency. I remember talking to guys, and I lived my life like this for a long time. I would only tell my wife that I watched porn if she asked me. Or I would only tell my wife that I was checking out this person, this woman, if she asked me. But if she doesn't ask, there's that age-old thing, man. I've heard this so many times on the job site. Oh, what she don't know, don't hurt her, and that's just so messed up, man. That causes so much damage because our wives, they're, God designed with this inherent ability to have this gut sense that there's something going on. And when she sees that her husband isn't owning it or being transparent or even acknowledging it, then it creates a lot of angst in her. It undermines safety. It creates a lot of instability. Tension and stress can rise in her because something's not right, but I can't put my finger on it. That's what our wives tend to do in those situations. So back with consistency during changing seasons, transparency, vulnerability. during a changing season. So if you find yourself, like me, moving from doing cold showers every day to exercise, or moving from mushroom coffee all the time because it's really expensive to regular coffee, then the consistent piece in that is being vulnerable. And what I mean by that is, here's why I'm making the change. Opening up your mind, opening up your heart, and having a conversation with your wife or others, your spouse, your boss, your kids, whoever is in your situation who would really appreciate understanding what's going on behind the scenes that's leading you to make a change outwardly. That's the consistency that I'm talking about. So in this situation with my wife, when she's in the kitchen, she's going, I just can't keep up with you. I just can't keep up with you. What I could have done, I said, hey, honey, since we are talking about all these finances and I'm looking at how much we're spending on this mushroom coffee and it's ridiculous. And I think, if I start drinking regular coffee, it's a lot cheaper. And then I realized that I can, when I make a regular coffee, I can just make a whole pot in one shot versus the single cups all at the same time. And I think that just makes a lot better sense. What do you think? That's what I'm thinking. And what that does is gives her front row access to what's going on in my mind and in my heart and in my thought process. And that right there takes away, right? It takes away the element of worry and wonder. We don't want to behave in ways that make our wives worry and wonder what's going on. And so consistency in a changing season means being consistently vulnerable and consistently honest. And sometimes in my situation here, I didn't even catch it, man. I didn't catch it until after the fact. And I think that's because I just was speeding up, man. I was coming off of this week where I was on my back all week long, changing 2 rear differentials, pulling a transmission and a clutch in a truck, and I was sore and I was in pain and my head was all over the place. And I didn't slow down enough to write my journal, to use my notebook, to actually think through these things. I was just kind of operating on autopilot in some ways. And for myself, when I have found myself emotionally spun out and operating on autopilot, I'm much more likely to be put in a situation where I will make a decision without opening up my heart and my mind to invite my wife into that decision process and say, here's the why behind the what that I'm doing. So that's what I have for you today. Consistency in a changing season means honesty and transparency around why you're thinking about or why you're choosing to make a change. That's consistency that I want you to work on. This, my friend, is Hands Like Hide, where every job teaches and every story transformed. I'm super thankful that you joined me on this episode. And if you find this helpful, dude, share it with a guy. Share it with somebody that you know. And work hard. Take care of your hands. I say that a lot, man. They're your primary tools. And love your family well. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.